So, Mr. Crawford, how are we?
Hey Stu, hey guys, how is everybody?
Mate, I'm excellent. Yeah, I'm really liking my voice, to be honest. It's kind of giving me that Mariola Frustrop, although nobody knows who outside of England knows who that is. But you know what I mean. That kind of what's that Bond character? But was it Pussy Galore? Whatever her name was.
Oh
Anyway.
mate, I'm just letting you dig that hole by yourself. I'm not getting involved in that one. It's completely up to you.
You've had a bit of a manic morning, right?
Yeah, I was meant to be plugging in from the granny flat. We're getting renos done at the moment, and
Yeah.
of course, the builders decided today was the day that they were going to do the rendering on the granny flat out the front. So I've had to do a last minute presto changeo
Yeah.
to zoom into the office. So a little bit manic today, but managed to
Fair
get
enough.
here on time. So
Perfect. Perfect. Man, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I know we've kind of known each other for a long time. We kind of sort of catch each other at various different events and things. And I don't know if you know that I was your spending coach client for a period of time.
well, I do know that.
Yeah.
I know you were, man. I haven't had that many people. I mean, I've coached. I think we're coming up to about 300 so far. But I remember everybody's name, face, and especially those with a Hugh Grant style accent.
And no doubt what they spend their money on out of
Yes.
school, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So look, man, let's just kick off because I mean, there's so much we can talk about here today. And when we were looking for a title for this, we sort of played around with a bunch of
I
things. But
saw
I
that.
think,
It was good.
yeah, I kind of liked it too. It just came out of nowhere. But I mean, it's the point of this is you're an advisor, but you've also played in a lot of other spaces. You're kind of one of these advisor slash serial entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah. Well, serial-ish in the sense of still sticking to my lane, being all things financial services. Um, Pretty much. There's a couple of stupid things that I've done, but nothing completely left of center.
What do they say? There's a sign on my jujitsu on the wall in the jujitsu class that says, "There's no losing in jujitsu. There's only winning and learning." And I think the same is true in business. Although I still argue that there is a losing in jujitsu, and you get absolutely messed up if it happens. But it's it's
Oh
kind of
yeah,
going
there's
along.
there's some losing in business as well, as I think everybody on the call knows as well.
So for those few people sort of on there right now who don't know a whole bunch about you, can you kind of give us a bit of a deep dive on what you do, who you help, the scope of sort of what you offer, and yeah, just basically what it's all about.
Yeah, cool. So we've got two businesses. So Experience Wealth is the baby. That's the financial planning, mortgage broking practice. Um, we work exclusively with Gen X and Gen Y. Average client age is 37.
Yep.
So oldest clients 52, youngest clients like 25. Although we're talking to trying to get a help out a 21-year-old at the moment, so that'll skew the age down a little bit.
Okay.
Started coming up for 10 years in December, which is a little bit scary because that seems to have hammered past.
Yeah.
Like it has and it hasn't. There's times where you go, shit, this thing's dragging out, but other times you just now look at it and go, wow, has it been 10 years? So
Yeah.
that's one business. There's myself, my business partner, Chris. And he's been part of the furniture here for a really long time.
Yeah.
Had two other previous business partners, which we can talk about later.
Okay.
Two wonderful ladies who I am massive fans of, but they're no longer part of the business.
Okay.
We've got a banking and lending specialist guy who's literally just joined us out of Bankland, which is fantastic. We've been stalking him for about 7 or 8 years, and now he's over. Got him out of corporate, which is great.
Yeah.
And then we have one team member based in the Philippines at the moment, Elaine. She does all of our back office stuff for Xero and MoneySoft for us and for our other advisors that we do the back office stuff for. And we're about to add 2 more on that.
Lovely.
And then I've got this pokey little side project called the XY Academy because,
Yep.
there weren't enough XY things. Although I actually had mine registered before the XY boys did. I was just sitting on it. I'll happily sell the name to them when they get massive and they want to pay me $1 million for it. But for now, stuff off. Fine. The XY Academy is basically the evolution of my passion for coaching financial advisors on how to build an offer that is attractive for Gen X and Gen Y clients, and then how to get them in, look after them. Basically, how to clone the experience wealth model, because I think that was one of the things that one of the reasons why I started the practice in the first place was because 10 years ago, and I still think even today, it's a hell of a lot better today than what it was 10 years ago. GenXY Advice was just how to flog insurance to people using super as a funding mechanism. I think technically that's how the strategy was told. Intergenerational advice, that was the other garbage name they used for it. So
it's definitely come on a lot. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it has. So the XY Academy is me legitimizing working with advisors in that. Initially, it was just training them on budgeting and cash flow. But now we're really starting to evolve that. I've built a couple of other online courses now, which are one's about to go live. The other one's sitting in a holding pattern at the moment. But yeah, that's corporate that's sort of the business side in a nutshell.
That's awesome. So should we go back to, I always like to know the origin story, the kind of Batman Begins of Steve Crawford, so to speak. I'm sure it doesn't involve you falling in a well full of bats, but I'm sure it's just as interesting. So tell us, I guess probably the start of it would be Experience Wealth. Would that be the beginning of it, or does it date back further than that?
Oh, I was a corporate before that. So I started from a business point of view, started at a company called ACNL, Australian Casualty and Life, which was the other side of National Mutual, that sort of days. And then they got bought by AXA, and then AXA, AXA, I was there, and then I bailed out of there and went over to MLC. MLC is actually the origin. MLC's got a lot to be, there's a lot of good things that came out of MLC. And so they've got to be thanked for creating the Crawford or starting the Crawford issue in financial services. And they've also got to be blamed for it. That's where Melissa and I met.
What year was this when you were at MLC?
2001 was when
we would have crossed over.
Yeah, I think so. There's a few people, there's a few of that sort of initial sort of early 2000s MLC crew that's fortunately still floating around in the industry in various different roles now.
Mate, it's all the Journey Framework's fault, basically.
Oh, mate, the Journey Framework. Anyone that's non-MLC won't understand it, but everyone that was at MLC will just go, that bloody Journey Framework. Anyway.
The proposition for those who don't know was, but prior to MLC, people used to go and say, can I have 10% of your funds? And MLC went in there and said, give us 100% and we'll give you a business system. And as you can see, that kind of inspired a lot of people. The other thing that often comes out is the question was, they'd go in and go, hi, I'm from MLC. The answer is master key. Now, what's the question? But that's a different thing. So that's MLC 2001, what came after that?
Met my beautiful wife, the original, the number one Crawford. So she obviously outranks me in so many ways. So Melissa and I met, fell madly in love, joined the MLC breeding program, which was all about, keeping people in the system. And we were lucky enough and a little bit untimed. Mel's sick of me telling this story, but she knows everybody knows it now. We had our first child very, very young. So we were sort of 25, 26, bucked the trend, which at the time was a bit of a nightmare from our friends' point of view, because it was very, very different. But right now we're out on the other side of, our youngest now is 7. My eldest is 14. So I've got a 14, 10 and 7-year-old boy. So it's 14, 10 and 7-year-old boys, 3 boys. But at the time, that was the corporate life was going okay. I was sort of in that BDM, PDM type role. Yeah. Pretty, I'm arrogant now. I was next level arrogant and completely unfounded back then. Did not know my ass from my elbow, but just knew that I could figure it out faster than everybody else.
That's MLC PDMs back in the day. It was like being king of the cream, on top of the pile, covered in skulls.
Pretty much, yeah. And so we sort of got to a point where Aiden as my eldest, it was about 12 months old. Okay. This is the genesis of Experience Wealth actually happened before that. So at the time when we got pregnant, we knew enough to be dangerous. Melissa was one of the senior sort of leaders in underwriting at MLC. So she had insurance covered. I was sort of working in the BDM team doing investments and insurance and super. So I thought I had that part covered.
Yep.
And we were renting in the Seaforth in the beautiful northern beaches of Sydney. But first time, we wanted to buy our first home. And my olds were from the Gong and Mel's olds were from Western Sydney. And we were going to be stuffed if we were going to head back there. Yep. So we went looking for a house. First time owners don't exist in Seaforth. I think the median house price then was like 2.5 million. So this was 2004. So went looking and started to go and sort of scope out some advisors and get some help around helping us make decisions around what we're going to do. And at the time it was, how much money can we afford to spend on a house? How much do we need for maternity leave? When Mel does go back to work, does she have to go 5 days or 4 days or 3 days? How does this whole childcare system work?
Yeah.
Like all of that sort of stuff that was really relevant and important to us.
Yeah.
And I was sort of really disappointed that the industry just didn't have the answers to those questions. And looking back now, I completely understand why, because the whole payment structure at that time for financial advice was 100% linked to product. So, there's no product that goes for childcare. There's no product that's linked to budgeting. There's no product that's linked to mat leave. So all they did, surprise, surprise, was, well, we can sort your super out and we can sort your insurance out. And we're like, mate, we're covered with that. We don't need it.
Yeah.
The banks would lend us. They could tell us how much money we could borrow, but not how much money we could afford to borrow.
Yeah.
And so we sort of had to bluff our way through it. And in the process, what ended up happening was I just figured it out. That was the initial creation of the budgeting and the cash flow stuff. Working out a budget, 2, sort of doing a pre-maternity leave plan and then a post-maternity leave plan, and then working out the difference between renting and owning. And I just went old school and did all of that stuff out on a spreadsheet. And it really helped, as much as it stressed the shit out of me and Mel to have to do all this stuff ourselves. It helped us make those decisions. And that was the catalyst for the creation of Experience Wealth.
Okay.
So I spent a few more years in MLC sort of learning my craft of, how to have conversations with people, and built the model in the test tube environment. I wasn't cut for corporate. I wasn't cut out for it. I love working with corporates, but I couldn't handle, you have a Monday morning meeting every Monday morning. Why? Because you have a Monday morning meeting every morning. And I just did my head in. So, bailed into, when was it? So 2000 and 18. So 2008, December 2008, started the business from scratch. No clients, no referral partners, never been an advisor before. 1 month after the GFC, targeting the 2 demographics that apparently were untargetable. And then sort of that was it. Pitched to 25 mates at a pub in Docklands. Actually got one of the heads of MLC down to help me open, and said, famously or infamously, saying, I need 5 of you guys to come on board as clients. Otherwise I'm going to have to go back and work for this bloke. And I'd rather neck myself than do that. Fortunately, 5 of them came on board as clients, and those 5 created. Shout out to Mark Angus, our number 1 client. He loves me telling this. He's like our number 1 ticket holder.
Love it.
So shout out to those guys, because they helped us sort of kick off from there, and then those 5 helped us get another 5, and then that was sort of the beginning.
So let's talk about. Like a lot of people, Rachel says Mark Angus is a legend.
Yeah, Gussie's a rare breed. He's one of the good ones.
There's obviously you decided to go after the Gen X and Gen Y, and that was a lot of people I see come out of, or they have coming out of corporate stories. There's a moment where they realize, do you know what? That's not right, or that's not happy, or that doesn't make sense to me, and that motivates them to go after something. And I think when you first have that. This when you start a business and you're full of passion and all the rest of it. And then you sort of reach that point where you realize that this isn't going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be. And it's usually a bumpy period. I mean, what did you learn in particular about sort of what you thought the offer was going to be and what you thought you were going to offer versus the reality of launching that kind of business and growing it from, 2008 through to where you are now?
Yeah, I think I was trained. One of the best, look, I love my time at MLC and I think, you did as well. And all of us that came out of that same school, we were trained. I think to this day, I don't think the industry has practice management training like we got back then, where we were actually taught strategy, business strategy from a financial planning point of view. And we were taught how to think and we were taught how to strategically go with what was coming. And that's why the journey framework worked at the time. And that's why it doesn't work now. But what that did was it gave me a really broad understanding of the market and what I could do. And so I sort of had two passions. One was business insurance and the other one was the GenXY space. So when I started the business, the plan was to have a two-pronged strategy, have GenXY and then do business insurance. And I ended up doing business insurance for about 18 months in total. And that was on commission. So I did hybrid commission on that, and we were hybrid commission day one on the GenXY space as well. But and we were fortunate. I think the first insurance case I wrote was $140,000 premium. So, which was pretty good. I mean, it was super stressful and it ended up going through, and that put money in the bank to basically enable me to choose what I wanted to do. And at the 18 months, that was the first fork in the road. I was like, I'm going to end up being a half-ass hero at both of these things. So I need to pick. And I suffer from, not so much now, but even back then, I've been a very anxious person for a long time. I think a lot of this is sort of false bravado type stuff. I'm the introverted extrovert. And when it came to business, like the last thing I wanted to do was stress. So I was really worried that I was going to stuff one of them up. And so I just basically forced myself to choose. So I was super passionate about the XY stuff. I was passionate about how much money you could make on the business insurance stuff because I knew it, but I wasn't passionate about it. And that for me wasn't it. If I was in it to make money, I would have stayed in corporate. That was the first fork in the road. And that allowed us to sort of push down the XY space and spend a lot more time on that.
I think that's a really important point because I think my daughter, 4.5, came back and she was watching Wish and Poof, which is a new thing. It's a Wish magic cartoon. And she turns around and says, "Mermaids, that's my passion. I'm passionate about mermaids." And I said, it's great that you're passionate about mermaids, but I think that a lot of business owners, they start out and they're told this thing, follow your passion. And I personally believe that for the first period or phase of business, you've got to grab hold of something that's floating. You've got to fit your oxygen mask and get your head above water. And then once you've got enough revenue to actually be viable, then you go, right, what I want, how can I move this business in that direction? But I see a lot of people who start out and they go, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And guess what? 6 months later, they're realizing that the first step is just get the revenue in the door so you're actually a business.
Yeah, look, we were like, I mean, I think back now and part of it was, and I say this, a lot of people say to me, you were lucky that you could start from scratch. And I'm like, well, we weren't lucky. Just Mel and I were planning my exit out of corporate pretty much 3 years in advance. So all of the bonuses that we got went straight off the mortgage and they sat and we built a war chest because I knew the last thing I was going to do was go down the path of relying on insurance commissions to run the business and doing upfronts and rewriting policies every 24 to 36 months. I was never going to do that. So part of it was building a war chest. The plan was don't take a salary for the first 2 years. And then the second part was hopefully the business insurance stuff worked, and that worked. And so we were fortunate enough to be able to make those decisions, but agree 100%. I think you can die on the vine being a purist. And that's the worst thing. Seeing passion crushed through the reality and the practicality of needing to eat is soul destroying. And I was never going to let that happen to me, and us and Mel, especially with, Mel put up with all the stress that comes with starting a business, but not actually being able to be in it. So it was super hard for her as well. Yeah.
I think Peter Thiel says, he's got this really great saying, which is no business idea survives first contact with a customer. And it's a really good way of looking at it. Whatever's in your head probably isn't going to be what it's going to be in the end. So don't fall in love with your ideas. So, man, let's just jump into the Gen X and Y stuff if that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, what have you learned? You know, 10 years of doing this stuff. What have you learned about working with Gen X and Gen Y that most businesses, for whatever reason, just don't quite manage to get their heads around? That's enable you to kind of thrive and other people to kind of go, I don't understand how to do it.
I think the main thing, especially for Ys, less so for X's, and I'm a Gen X, I'm a cusper, right? But I'm probably more an X than a Y.
Yeah.
I think Ys in particular, every day that goes by give less and, negative Fs are given if your business model is not built around them.
Okay.
They just do not give a shit anymore. It is like, if you do not build your model around me, I'm not even going to entertain it. I don't care how good you are. I don't care that you're great with my olds. If it doesn't look like you guys have thought about me and the way you've put this together, I'm not even going to bother. And the rationale is, and that is, I think it's an exponential curve, to be honest. I think it's getting faster and faster. And that's being exacerbated by Spotify's and Netflix's, and because everything else today is now pivoting and making sure they're building it around them. So from a financial planning model point of view, what I've learned is you need to start with them. You need to bury what the industry has told you you need to offer them. You just get rid of it, start from scratch. Get them, sit them in a room and go, why would you ever bother coming and talking to somebody like me? Like what? And so for us, we simplify it down into two different things. We help them get rid of their financial headaches and we help them achieve their goals.
Okay.
Now, the goal achievement stuff is actually, it's such a bloody... So I get the shits when I talk to financial advisors and they say they do goal achievement stuff or goal planning or any of this stuff and goal work with clients. And then you scratch the surface and all they're still doing is insurance, super and retirement planning. That's not GenXY advice. Okay. I mean, it is, but it's not enough.
It's not what they're looking for.
It's not what they're planning on. They know they have to retire. They know they need to have enough money, but they're not getting out of bed every morning going, oh, I can't wait until I can check out my super balance and see I've only got 34.9 years to go until I can tap into that shit. They don't care about that.
So they're not interested in peace of mind, getting your financial house in order.
No, they're not. No, just phrases that just need to be doused in petrol and set on fire. I mean,
so what are the hot buttons when it comes to? I mean, we'll talk about X in a bit, but why? What are the things that makes them? The whole head turn.
It's decision making. It's decision making. It's financial decision making, and this stuff is not rocket science because it's what everybody in this age bracket, in our age brackets, needs to do. So you go from financially single. We call us Sally's and Sam, financially singles, and we sort of created client avatars around that and go, okay, what do they actually want to do? And then you move forward from there. So Sally and Sam's big first decisions is, once I've got a decent wage, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to still rent in a crappy place, or am I going to move to a better place? How much money can I spend on holidays? Do I want to get a car lease and look cool? It's a very Sydney thing to do, not so much in Melbourne. They don't really care. Sydney, all our Sydney clients love a car lease with a fancy car. And you can literally just keep moving. Then it's find boy, meet boy, or meet girl, or vice versa. Do we move in together? If we do move in together, how do we start blending our money? If we are going to blend our money, is this someone that I actually want to blend my money with? If the shit hits the fan and I need to bail, how do I get out of that without losing everything? Okay. Then you keep progressing from there into, typically these days it's, are we going to buy a property together first before we get married? Depending on which side of the traditionalist coin they sit on. How do we do that? And then you just keep progressing. How do we start a family? We call them the breeders in here. And first-time breeders, first-time buyers are like we're manna from heaven for them because they are two ridiculously scary decisions. Exercises that they are going to undertake that they have never done before, that scares the crap out of them, that we can not only show them how to do it, teach them how to do it, and help them understand their choices of moving on one side to the other. So, and then you keep going, schooling, more houses, paying off debt, education funding, keep going, right? So it's just this normal logical progression. Childcare, how many days a week should they work? Like all of that stuff, which again, this is everybody has to go through this. The only thing that we do is we actually teach them how to make those decisions. And then we help provide insights around what their choices look like. So we've really consciously made a decision to, yes, we're financial planners, but we've really said our job is to coach.
Yeah.
The big thing about X's and Y's is they don't want to be told what to do. They want to be taught how to make the decision. And they want to be in charge of asking, what do you think I should do?
Yeah.
But they still want to understand how to do it themselves.
Perfect.
I think look, I don't think that's too dissimilar to other age brackets, but from what I've heard from advisors that have older clients, they're more open to just being told what to do, but definitely not your X's and your Y's. Definitely not.
I've noticed that with the younger clients, when you've got more of a consultative initial appointment, which is less about, let me tell you everything I do and all the solutions, let me solve your problem, more about let's unpack, what your goals are, where you're at now, and then collectively let's decide what are the main things you need to overcome in the middle. You get them to take ownership of the problem. And it makes sense to me because we live in a world where, everything is customized. Your phone, you can get your car wrapped different colors. People expect to be able to define the nuances. And therefore, I think if your engagement process isn't enabling to almost create something that's them, they're never going to own it.
I think the challenge with that, agree 90, and this was the same in our podcast. I said I wasn't going to agree with everything you said. I think they need to feel like they're controlling it, but you're still driving the process. So the analogy I use is Toyota and Lexus. They need to be getting a Lexus model, and everybody that has a Lexus knows deep down they just bought an expensive Toyota Camry. They know that, they just need to accept that shit and just move on. Because it's built on the Toyota process. It's built on the Kaizen principle. It's automated, it's structured. But the difference is from a Lexus point of view, the client experience is 100% wrapped around them. And they're made to feel like they're the only person that's ever bought and is ever going to buy a Lexus. And so I think you've got to have the best of both worlds. There's no point having an open-ended infrastructure that enables the client to be completely driving this thing, because you can end up in a rabbit warren that you don't know the answers to. And ultimately they have to be able to say back to you when they say, what do you think? What they're really looking for is that you're not making it up. And this is the irony of a GenXY model. For them to really see value in what you do, you need to have proof statements that you've done it with other people like them before. Okay. And that's why I think the budgeting and the cash flow stuff in particular spooks a lot of advisors, is because they haven't done it before. And I think that's where the technology is sort of a safety blanket, because the safety blanket, the technology is now doing it and they're piggybacking and they're coming in off that. So I think that with the X's and the Y's, they do really want to get a sense that I'm not the guinea pig. I'm not the first one that's gone through this, because there's a really big perception in the industry, shockingly, that it was born out of product flogging and retirement products and insurance products. And therefore, if you're now saying you're an XY advisor and you're going to do goals-based advice and budgeting and cash flow, there's a healthy level of skepticism to go, how do you know how to do that when everybody else that I've heard that's a financial planner just flogs retirement products and insurance? So prove to me that you know what you're doing.
It is incredibly ironic, because you see the number of businesses out there, no names mentioned, who are putting themselves out on social media, awards and all the rest of it. And damn well when you get into under the bonnet, they're brand new businesses. They've only been doing it for a couple, 3 or 4 months. So we've got this whole thing where people want to see social proof. And there's so many businesses out there saying, talking that game. And meanwhile, to be honest, there's a lot of people who can do this stuff who are very, very quiet on social media. It's the great irony, I think, that, fools are good people doubt themselves, while fools will carry on regardless.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Gary Vee, and Gary Vee is very famous for saying he ate shit for the first 10 years. You didn't hear anything out of his mouth until he'd actually done something. And I think that's the same from an X and a Y point of view. They will smell bullshit within seconds. and they'll Facebook stalk, and they'll go and they'll find, and if your offer doesn't look like it's been, rubber stamps and they've kicked the tires out of it and it works, then you're no good. So I think client-based referrals are important for all businesses, but they are very important. And that's that extension of the social proof for Gen Ys and Gen Xs. They have to be able to feel like at some point, even if it's not a client referral, and that's why 95% of our clients come from client referrals. They want to feel like, I know you haven't, show me someone that you haven't screwed over, and let them tell me that you haven't screwed them over, and then I'll come and talk to you. And the biggest compliment we get, and we had this the other day with someone who'll hopefully become a new client. She said, it's good talking to you guys. You're normal. You're just like us. And we've gotten that a few times now. And she sort of said it like, and then she apologized for saying it, like, because I think she thought that it sounded insulting.
Yeah.
But for us, that's the best thing that they can say, because we want to remove the stigma that's attached to financial planning, one practice at a time, hopefully starting with our clients first.
And I find this is the interesting thing about online. You get advisors saying, well, I put this stuff online, didn't get an ROI. But you and I both know that if someone gets referred by their friends, the first thing to do is Google you, check out your blogs, check out any videos you've got. And there's a number of touch points they'll go for. And the more touch points, the more data points they can find that are already out there, the more likely they are to accelerate the decision to come and talk to you. And that's probably one of the important things to note in this market as well, because they're very good with data.
Yeah, they are. And they'll find, they will keep going to find your bullshit point. And if they keep hitting it and they can't find it, then they go, oh, maybe this guy's legit. That's why, our Facebook page is borderline, non-productive. We're good enough to be dangerous, but that's it. Our website hasn't been refreshed for quite a while, but it's okay. But what you won't find anywhere on Experience Wealth is me or any of the team ever talking about retirement planning or transition to retirements or pensions or any of that stuff ever. And that doesn't mean that we don't think it's valuable. It's just not relevant to our clients. And I think they want to see that. Like, if you're a specialist in me, then just effing well be a specialist in me. Stop talking about other stuff. Because as soon as you start talking about how pensions work for my olds, I'm like, well, mate, which one are you? Like, do you look after them or do you look after me?
Yeah.
Look, I know that sounds really harsh. I think if you're in and I say this to advisors all the time, this is where the budgeting and the cash flow stuff comes from, right? Because 95% of the coaches, advisors that have done my program, when I ask them why they're doing it because they want to get more GenXY clients. So I know that. So the first thing I say to them is, the person that looks after the parents can't look after the kids.
Fair enough.
It just can't. You can do it, but it won't work.
I think the old rule used to be 15 years up and 15 years down. That's pretty much the age range you can get away with.
I actually don't think it's about the age bracket. I actually think it's about what do you do. So I think if you are when Mel and I had the boys, all three of them were cesarean, because that's the way that we had to go through it. And we had an amazing OBGYN, and he was, 20 years older than us. And at no point did we turn around and go, oh, geez, I wish we could find a Gen X OBGYN because they're inside the... I don't give a shit. I want someone that... What do you do? I literally deliver babies all day. That is all I do.
It's a great analogy.
So I don't care whether you're a 65-year-old that just wants to help Gen Ys. If you're a 65-year-old that only looks after Gen Ys and Gen Xs, then you're my man. But if you're a 65-year-old or a 55-year-old that still has a foot in every camp, I live with 25s. My client range is 25 to 75. I'm like, mate, just choose already. You've been going long enough, because all you're going to be is a half-assed hero at all of them. And I think the tolerance from a younger generation point of view for mediocrity is non-existent. They will not deal with you if you are not good at what they want. And good, the benchmark for good is so much higher, because every other aspect and interaction that they have in life now, there is zero tolerance for shit, because they will just move.
Today's good is yesterday's excellent. Yesterday's excellent is today's world class. It's so true.
Yeah.
Can we talk, how does X, just briefly, how does X differ from Y? I mean, you mentioned that Y's are about getting rid of the hassles, and there's serious number of different problems they hit, getting clear on the goals, and it's about that consultative. How does X differ if it doesn't?
X's are more skeptical, take longer to make decisions. Y's are more gut. And if they've done, because they'll do more social stalking, they'll talk to their friends, they'll do a lot more pre-validating before they get to you. So when they talk to you, it is more, yeah, it's what I thought, let's hit it and quit it, or nah, I was wrong, and they bail. Whereas X's will want to kick the tires a little bit more. So you tend to find with our X's, and I deal with most of our X's just from an age point of view anyway, plus that's my specialty. Yeah. Willow deals, Chris, my business partner, Willow deals with all of our Ys predominantly, that X's will tend to take up more of face-to-face meetings, especially initially.
Okay.
Whereas Ys are quite happy to just go straight to a virtual one. And yeah, that tends to be it. That once you get them both into the system and they're comfortable with different ways of interacting, X's are just as happy to get videos from us instead of virtual meetings, instead of face-to-face meetings, as the Ys are. But Ys will tend to go straight to that and just go, yep, that's normal. So there's another difference there.
Can we talk about the big elephant in the room? Because one of the biggest problems that a lot of businesses will have with this market is trying to find the right price point.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we can, we all want to be able to charge profitably, but if you stack the cake, or whatever you want to call it, with this, you're not going to hit your profit margins. Can you tell us what you've learned about pricing this?
Yeah, I think you've got to be as explicit as you can be and as clean as possible as early as you can. Okay. And you need to align value, so that this is the biggest issue I think around pricing, is not so much, well, explicit versus implicit is one issue, because they sort of know they don't have to do commissions and percentages anymore if they don't want to. In financial planning, in mortgage broking, they still understand that space works the way that it is, but in planning, they don't have to do commissions if they don't want to. The biggest issue, I think, is around the alignment of value. So if you're going to say that the majority of what we do with you is help you make better decisions around your money, we're going to do goals-based stuff, we're going to do coaching, we're going to do budgeting and cash flow, but the way I'm going to get remunerated is still heavily linked to whether or not you take out a retail insurance product, that doesn't align. Okay. And it's a really hard continual sell. And so I think my view is align the value. So if you are going to, if you're going to have the majority of your payment coming from insurance, then give the insurance the value that it deserves in the way you position it with the client. If you're going to have the majority of your value coming outside of insurance, then you need to charge for that outside of insurance, outside of super. It needs to be a direct fee, because all it's going to do is devalue it. And it'll always be seen as something that isn't really that valuable, because if it was, you would charge me directly and explicitly for that.
So in other words, don't cross-subsidize and expect, if you're doing cash flow coaching and you're getting paid by insurance, they're not going to go, oh, the cash flow coaching is what's this all about. They're going to go, the cash flow coaching is the unvaluable bit. Obviously, you're getting paid the insurance. In other words, the fee's got to come from the place where you're creating the most value and potentially doing the most beneficial work.
Yes, agreed, 100%. Yep.
Okay. So can you give us, like, you've seen a lot of businesses do this. For you, if we talk about X and Y, what are the ranges, where you just know that if they're trying to deliver your typical X service offer or your Y service offer and it's under this number, it's too little. And if it's over a certain number, it's just too much.
Okay. So, I can tell you what our model is, and then everyone can sort of pick and choose whether they sit either side. I think you've got to have a lower entry point. That's the first thing, especially for the Ys, not so much for the X's, but definitely for the Ys. So we charge for a goal planning session, and we charge $220 for that.
Okay.
And in that
that's a goal session.
Goal planning session. Yeah. Okay. So, the benefit from a client's point of view is that they'll understand their values, their shared values, and their individual values. They'll do 2 steps of our 3-step goal planning approach. They'll do the first step, which is create a wish list, And this is around prioritization and ultimately selecting what they want to have a crack at. First step is they'll do a wish list. They'll be given an opportunity to move their goals on their wish list to their goals board, which is around prioritization by time and want to have versus must have. And then they'll get to see how their budget stacks up against everybody else in our peer group. So they can sort of do a bit of a scratch and sniff on that. And then we'll roll it forward and say, based on the budget that you've told us, here's when we think your home loan's going to be paid off. So one of the biggest standing stated or understated goals from an X and a Y point of view is, when will I be debt free? And that is becoming something that everybody is acutely aware of now. And that is something that I've seen change over the last 8 years. No one gave a shit about how much debt they had until about 18 months ago. And now everybody's focused on it. So we've tried to align the value, what we think works up front, and give them something that's valuable enough that they can pay $220 and go, these guys know what they're talking about. If they've given me this much value in a $220 session, imagine how valuable it's going to be if I actually pay them more money and get stuff get the answers to the questions. Because basically all we're doing in the goal planning session is showing them that they don't know the answers to their questions. Or even if they do, they don't have the insight into how to make the decisions. From there, you go up. So I'm
going to read between, sorry, just quickly. I read between the lines and say that in terms of the process for that, it's pretty well defined, and you're not doing a lot of prep or not trying to go in there with all the solutions.
No. So I'll answer Michael's question now. The conversion rate between goal planning and taking advice is 100%.
Ooh, that's interesting, isn't it?
Well, and we never used to charge for the goal planning session until 2 years ago. And our conversion was about 80%. And what we found, you go, mate.
I was just going to say, you would have changed the positioning though when you made that call, right?
Yeah, not a lot. The reason why we started charging $220 is just skin in the game for us. We're not doing it to make money, but what we found was people who aren't going to pay $220 won't pay $1,000, $4,000, $5,000. So it really, what it does is it filters them out. We don't want those people getting into that part because we're already starting to emotionally invest in a potential client, and we don't want them coming on board if they don't need to come on board. So the conversion's 100% from that point.
Have you tried different price points for that, or has it always been 220?
We just stuck it at 220.
So you've not gone high, you've not gone low. It's just
we've just left it there because we wanted to have that hurdle. So we go nothing. So obviously 0, and then 220, and then the next jump up's 995. So that's for what we now call the money and mortgage management plan.
Okay.
And that's effectively setting up their budget, their cash flow reporting, their banking structure, and we do a lending analysis in there. So that's a segue through to into the mortgage broking side as well.
Cool. So, and then that's $995. And how long does that take you?
That will do about 2 hours to do that one.
And presumably that's an hour on its own, just no prep.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. There's a tiny bit of prep, but not a lot because it's all structured.
Perfect.
We then charge per goal. So I think one of the things we do differently is we charge $500 per goal. So at the planning stage, so if you've got one goal that you want us to map out, it's $500, 2 goals, $1,000. And most clients on average, wise, will typically just go with one goal, which will be a property purchase or a baby fund. So help us work out what our maternity leave return to work plan is.
Yeah.
As I said, if you get a breeder buyer combo, first time breeder buyer, that's $1,000 straight away because it's how much can we afford to spend? How do we put it? And then for our olders, for our X's, it'll be education funding and the early retirement fund. Or we got a lot of corporate clients that want to tell their boss to get stuffed and start their own business. So we'll have like the get stuffed work calc.
Get stuffed.
And then insurance and super, we charge $1,995 for a single and $3,990 for a couple. And that's a one-time only setup fee for insurance. Super. So that's insurance, super, estate plan, structuring.
And presumably that's commissions rebated?
Dialed down to 0. And typically if we're doing it the right way, we can meet best interest duty and all that sort of stuff. Typically that one's getting charged to the super fund. And if they need to, they'll put in a top up contribution to even that out.
Mate, it's a classic sort of online sort of funnel where you go from your free stuff, then your slightly expensive stuff, and then it's an ascending model. It's fabulous. I love it.
And then ongoing, I think you got to keep that clean as well. So we have what we call the DIY offer, which is $20 a month. And that's literally access to the budgeting and the cash flow software, whether it's Xero or MoneySoft. We've got our own versions of both. And that's literally designed we've got 2 clients on that now, only 2. That is literally there from a business point of view to say, guys, if you ever want to bail, we don't want you feeling like this thing only works if you're stuck with us. So this is the Get Stuff Steve strategy, and I'm going to keep it, and it's only $20 a month.
So it's basically a list maintenance strategy for future marketing opportunity. Well, yeah, just to maintain contact so they know you're there. It
is. This financial year coming up, we're going to have a proper crack at actually growing our pre-sales strategy and actually doing cultivating a funnel at the front end and using it as a way to bring people in. We've never needed to, and we still don't need to, but we want to try and de-risk the business by moving the reliance off our clients for providing us sole source of referrals. Our ongoing, and then 2, we've got virtual coach and personal coach. Virtual coach is I always get the pricing wrong on this, $150 or $200 a month. So $150 a month for singles, $200 a month for couples. If anybody wants any of my pricing stuff, I'm happy to flick that through later as well, mate. That's easy. It's everywhere. Jump onto the XY Advisor Facebook group or join my Facebook group, and I'll give it to you all for free.
There you go. Which is
that one's a little bit
XY Academy.
XY Academy, yeah. We'll put so you can just go Facebook/ the XY, so THEXY Academy.
Okay.
I can get the link and chuck it in. I think the thing that's different about that one, that is 100% video, no interaction with us. So they get quarterly progress videos from us. They get an annual review video from us. And if they want to then take advice or buy some time, they can buy that. So they can basically add it on and go, if I want to make a change to if one of our recommendations in the pre-annual or the annual review is previously you're insured for X based on the numbers that we now know your risk is Y. We recommend you plug the gap. Do you want to plug the gap? And they go, yes, they pay $550 to do that.
Perfect. And then you've got your personal coach, which is
$300 or $400 a month. So $300 a month for singles, $400 a month for couples. And if we're doing, and that is then your traditional financial planning, but unlimited emails, unlimited meetings, unlimited changes, just normal. Yeah.
And presumably if there's new advice, you charge a fee at that point?
No, all included.
It's included. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. That's the model, mate. You got to go all in. It's either all or nothing. Like I think if you had the middle one and you go, any changes this, but otherwise that's the model. Like you've got to sort of do it on I get what I get. I pay what I pay, and then it's included. I mean, the only time it would be completely random, they want to set up a self-managed super fund, which we don't do anyway. And then we're just handballing them off to somebody else to do that stuff.
Mate, we're coming up to time, but I'm actually keen to keep going if you are. Do you have a bit of time?
I'm happy to hang around, buddy. I'm good.
Look, before we go, for those who've potentially got 10 o'clock, Steve, we had a chat about the fact that if anybody's really interested in sort of learning all the stuff you're doing, you've got a code they can use. I'm going to put it in the box there.
Just see the thanks Stu in there.
Yeah.
So what that'll get you access to is 25% off my Your Spending Coach course, which is the budgeting and the cash flow one. I'm about to launch our debt course, so the the mortgage management program. That's going to go live today, and that's for helping you integrate the banking and the budgeting and the cash from the banking to the lending side. So if you've got a mortgage broking arm, I would be looking at, I think there's some value in looking at both. If you don't have mortgage broking, I'd just be looking at the budgeting and the cash flow one. I've limited it though to 25. So it's the first 25 people will get it.
Okay.
We'll get a 25% discount off any of those things.
Perfect.
And then after that, it stops.
Okay, so let me put I just realized I put the code into just you and I, which is probably going to help. The
No, you
links,
said to all panelists. Oh no, I'm not a panelist. Sorry.
you are a panelist.
Yeah,
You've got attendees. So it's now gone through to everybody there. So if you're interested, 25 licenses, 25% off. And now with the obligatory product sort of offer out of the way, let's talk about two additional things, which is I'd love to talk first about software because that came up. And I'd love to circle back and talk about, how do you make sure this is profitable? Because when you're operating at that price point, there are certain things you can do and there's certain things you just can't do that a traditional business can. So let's talk about the software. You would have, I reckon, more than anybody else in the industry, you have to have played with every bloody budgeting tool out there.
Well, yes and no. I've only played with the ones that I think are relevant and I've ignored the ones that aren't. We've seen one of the so-called budgeting and cash flow support services go under in the last couple of weeks, and we're in the middle of cleaning up, helping out an advisor. I think that might be Bill Butler. I think Bill Butler went belly up. Okay.
Whoops.
And we're helping advisors exit themselves out of that mess at the moment. Yep. But we only rate MoneySoft, My Prosperity, and Money Brilliant. Now, that's not to say that the other ones aren't any good. Where our view though is, and Zero, sorry, obviously is the other one. My Prosperity, mate, not Your Prosperity, but that's okay. Close enough. They know who you're talking about. They know who you're talking about.
I thought you said My Prosperity. I was talking, I get it.
The thing, they're all good enough, right? And they've got backing. That's the main ththing for me. Technology has to have financial backing. So MoneySoft's got Link Group behind them. My Prosperity's got the X0 MD, and you've got a MyOb founder that's bankrolled those boys. Money Brilliant's co-owned by AMP Capital, and Zero's cashed up to the wazoo. So they're all sorted. You've got, and the reason why we suggest those as opposed to things like you're writing now, Pocketbook and Acorns is DIY, right? So this is not a business software. It's great for your DIY clients, but it's not going to give you practice level reporting, whereas the other ones are. The top three, MoneySoft, My Prosperity, and Money Brilliant, are what we call auto code software. So whereas Zero is auto suggest. So what the top three will do is they'll use their algorithms, they'll use their methodology, and they'll automatically put transactions into buckets.
Gotcha. So auto assign essentially.
Auto assign, yeah. What Zero will do is auto suggest. So it will force you to validate that the transaction is what you think it is, or it is what it was coded as last time. This is the biggest mistake that coaches make all the time. They think auto code is always faster than auto suggest, and it is, and it isn't. It is initially because it'll put stuff into a bucket, but they all get it wrong all of the time. Not 100%, but in their quest to limit the amount of times that advisors need to allocate and unallocated, they'll just keep progressively ratcheting up the rules engine behind to do allocations, and they'll get them wrong. So as a coach, you're going to have to spend time finding and cleaning this stuff up. In Zero, you're spending your time allocating. So our rule of thumb is assume you are going to have to spend the exact same amount of time getting the data accurate, because here's the thing. The only reason people sign up for a budgeting and a cash flow program is because they want to save money. And they want to use those savings to do things like goals, financial and lifestyle. When you're sending them their reporting, whether it's automated or whether it's manually generated, that shit needs to be 100% accurate. And I'm not just talking about the bottom line. I'm talking about the buckets that it goes into. Because if the clients are on track, you're not going to have an issue, arguably, because they'll forgive the fact that the system or you have inaccurately coded the money into the wrong bucket or the transaction into the wrong bucket. But if they're not on track, and especially when you're starting out, you're going to have clients that aren't on track because you don't know what you're doing. They need to look to you to look to the data and go, where can we cut back? Where can we make adjustments to get on track? Now, if your system in your quest for expediency has incorrectly put transactions into the wrong buckets just because you didn't want to annoy the client by asking them to validate a transaction. What happens is they start to pick holes or pull at threads, and it's like a jumper, like a beautiful red sort of cherry. I'm not quite sure what color. Like a plum or a red wine knitted top.
It's the kind of jumper a serial killer would wear if they were going to kill
pretty
someone.
much.
Yeah.
You keep pulling the threads and eventually the thing unravels. And in that context, unraveling means they leave your business. They bail on the program first. They bail on you as an extension of that. And you've lost what is going to be one of your biggest referral points. We only get referrals in our business for 3 reasons: money management, goal planning, and debt management. That's it. Our clients don't refer as the primary catalyst for referral. They don't refer for insurance and super and estate planning and investments. They do it, but it's always in the other one. So that's one of the things I'd say around software. That those 4 are good, but don't think by default just because you go into one that it's gonna be this all singing, all dancing, all conquering AI engine that's just gonna nail it. It's just not gonna happen. You still need to put some effort into it.
It's, you know what, it'd be lovely. And you see a lot of advisors, advisors going, should I use X plan or this or what tool it is? And there's a lot of sort of hot air wasted on this. The reality is the software is not there yet. So whatever you're doing, simplify the system. Don't try and rely on the software, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to let you down if you rely on it completely.
Yeah, it is. Now, any of the questions that I'm Stu probably shut me down at some stage. Any of the questions that you guys have got, join my Facey group, the XY Academy. So just literally go into Facebook, join the group, throw the questions up in there, and I will answer. Myself and Chris will answer all of those. And the group's all about anything XY advice related now. So it was initially around the budgeting and the cash flow stuff, but we're going to open it right up. So it's insurance and super and education funding and maternity leave and property decisions. It's going to be 100% focused on how do you help your GenXY clients make better decisions. So if you've got any, join me there and I will answer your questions all day, every day, except for Saturday and Sunday, and actually only between 9 and 5, but all day, every day, except for those things that I just said.
Definitely not Monday morning, and pretty much any day ending in Y. Other than that, I'm on.
Yeah.
So can I ask 2 more questions, and then let's bring it home. The first one I wanted to ask is, Ruben's a really good question. It's a great question, by the way, Ruben. There's kind of 3 levels to any sort of budgeting report. There's getting the information. There's then interpreting the information for the client, but there's then how do you change the behavior, which is where if you don't get it right, it can become really intensive. What's your tip for people who are in that, great, I've got the system, but it's not changing anything?
You can't change behavior. There's a reason why there's a saying called, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
You can. You just give them salt.
Right. Okay. Well, you can do that. Right. So 1, Stu says, salt your clients, not assault your clients, just salt your clients. Right?
Yeah.
Look, the reality is, unless they have a strong enough reason to save, they will not change their behavior. And examples of this, the 2 examples of this that I give that prove that behavior change is possible, is pregnancy and committing to a first home. You've never seen people save money like when someone's knocked somebody up and they're about to have their kid, or when they've stupidly gone to an auction at the weekend, bid for something and realize that they actually need to pay for the bloody thing. You watch them cut back real quick because they have a super highly articulated, defined reason to save as 1, and they have a definitive time frame. That's 2. So the first thing is help them find the goal. Don't give them the goal, help them find the goal, help them own the goal, but the goal has to be in a shortened time frame. If it's outside 2 years, you are going to struggle. So help them find something that happens preferably inside a 12-month block. That will change that's the first part of behavior change. The second part is then practically you have to make it easy for them to stick to their budgets. And the best way to do that is through your banking structures. It's actually not about the software at all. It's actually not about the budgeting at all. Yes, you got to do the budgeting to work out what is spendable dollars and what's not spendable dollars. Yes, you got to have the software to give you feedback on how they're going, but it needs to run through their banking structure and it needs to be easily identifiable through this thing. They need to have banking buckets. We talk about spending, storage, and savings accounts. And it's about having purpose around how they use it. You need to go micro. It gets to the point that they know whether or not they're going to get their wallet out and use the blue colored card. This is Steve's spending card. Stu can see that one right there.
Is that pink?
Yeah, blue and pink. I'm a modern man.
I'm
a modern man. There we go. Blue and pink.
Love it.
or the credit card, and you need to teach them, you need to work through and go, guys, what's getting spent on this guy and what's getting spent on this guy, and they're linked to accounts. So practically first, they have to have a reason to save. Once you've gotten beyond that, and that's your job to help them find it. But as the coach, your value then says, how do you create a banking structure that makes it so that the only way they don't save money is if they do it intentionally, or the crap hits the fan and the heater blows up and they've got to get it fixed.
Can I just add, I've implemented, there's a book called Profit First by Michael Michalowicz, which is essentially the business version of a lot of what you're talking about. And we implement in our business, same sort of structure. You know, you're parking money out. You're not doing bank balance accounting. How big is my bank balance? That'll define how I spend. And it's the only way, because otherwise it's just something that as soon as, so things get stressful, it goes out the window. Can I just add one thing?
Yes, mate.
With the motivation, I absolutely agree. It's about the reasons, about the time frame. But I think what people, unfortunately, a lot of time they don't realize is that people change because they're in pain. Now, whether we like it or not, that's the human condition. And that's why a lot of us won't actually go on diets until we get to the point where we look in the mirror and go, I can't stand it anymore. But the whole point is a lot of advisors in their appointments, they want to make people feel okay. They want to get the awkward out of the way. And you have to understand that if you're going to make people to change, you have to let them sort of sweat in their awkwardness before you put the solution on the table. And the other thing is be aware that once that immediate pain is relieved, you know, they've got some money in the account, you've got to step in and be really vigilant. Otherwise, people generally, when they get the pain taken away, they go back to what they did before, which is why a lot of people do diets, they lose the weight and they put it back on. So if you're going to go into the behavioral space, understand that, you know, it's totally about the motivator. It's also about making it easy, but it's also about realize that to get people to change, you've got to sometimes make them realize that what the cost of failure is and keep reminding them of it. Is that fair, Steve?
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think we're more of an enlightened model. I've got 3 boys. So the thing that I say is I'm not your effing parent. I'm not your older brother. I'm not here to babysit you through this shit. You're grown-ups. Yeah. If you say you want to do something and then you don't do it, I'm going to believe you. Don't come bitching at me going, oh, we don't have the money for this stuff. I'm like, mate, you spent it. Like, get over it. One is more important than the other. Make the frigging decision. Now, if the reason why they haven't saved is I've given them a shit banking structure or our reporting is inaccurate, then kick my ass 7 ways from Sunday. But if the reason why you haven't saved is you can't adult yet and you're still prone to say, oh, but I need to go out for benders with my mates. I'm like, fine, let's redo your goals. And we're going to write up on the board, I need to have more benders with my mates. I need to have more holidays where I don't save for them. And then I spend a shitload of money and then I get it debt when I come back. And then I'll help you do that. So I'm like an anti, you probably shouldn't talk to your clients the way that I speak to mine.
What do they say? The stuff that'll get you called a genius later on is the stuff that'll get you fired if you start doing it at the beginning.
Look, I mean, I'll say this and it's going to sound braggy, but that's because it is. We've got a really large number of financial services clients, BDMs, PDMs, executives, managers, and they have lots of relationships with financial planners, and they've deliberately chosen us. Now, yeah. I don't think they've chosen us because I'm the nicest person on the planet, or we might not necessarily be the best at everything that we do. I think they've chosen us because there's an element of authenticity that just plays the whole way through in what we do. And I think what that says is if a BDM or a PDM is choosing our model over working with somebody else that they might have a far better relationship with, I think it speaks to the model. I don't think it speaks to us so much. So it reinforces why you should be bold enough to have a crack at doing it differently. And I'm a huge fan. You see it in the courses of creating pilot groups. Test this shit in the field, get to minimum viable product, get validation from your client base that this thing actually works, find some friendlies that are going to allow you to make some F-ups, and then launch and then use the data to back up your calls. But be bold, because I think the window that we all have to get this right is closing. I think it is closing very, very quickly. And I think a lot of advice practices run the very significant risk that they will get excluded from the majority of the market if they don't start to actually play in this space very soon.
I agree with you completely. And I think, yeah, I do. I totally agree with you about the windows closing, but I think the thing is those who can squeeze through, particularly in the marketing space, particularly in getting a handle on the fact that this is no longer a product.
It's massive reward.
You are just going to, literally, it's downhill all the way on the other side.
Yeah.
It's just that flip that's got to happen
in
the business models and the way I think about it. Let's finish on one thing. This has been so good, Steve.
Thanks, buddy.
Profitability. A lot of businesses out there probably may have tried some of these offers. They put together bits and pieces, but for some reason they find themselves at the end of the year kind of going, Jesus, everyone kind of loves it, or they drop.
Yeah.
Maybe they reach 2 years and dropping off, or everyone's loving it, but I'm not getting paid. And what are the kind of 2 or 3 tips that you can give them about how not to make this just a good offer, but make it a commercially successful offer as well?
Right. One, you got to do mortgage broking. That's you just got to do it. You've got to give up the fact that you're going to get referrals from other people, and you just got to bring it in-house. And the reason why you got to bring it in-house is twofold. One, when you're doing budgeting cash flow stuff, which you have to do for your GenXYs, if you don't do budgeting cash flow, don't bother, because everything that they want to do is live off what their savings are. And if you can't give them that information, and you can't provide insights into the information, then just give up, right? It's going to be too hard. It's too much work, and you're just going to lose them.
Yeah.
So then when you face into that, you go, okay, well, budgeting cash flow includes banking. Banking lives in lending. I need the right structures. I need the right buckets. I need the ability to call the bank and go, hey, can you order a new pink and blue card for Wendy for her entertainment account and link it to her debit thing? Mm-hmm. If you can't do that, then you're going to struggle. So I think you got to bring that in. That's for me first and foremost. The second thing is then those 2 things will subsidize. Yeah. So your mortgage broking, while it's still a commission model today, prepare like you're going to have to go to a fee on that, even if it doesn't happen. Mortgage broking will subsidize your fees, because I think it's very hard to charge a larger fee on that side. So for us, the profitability exists in the fact that we've actually got, and we are profitable, and we have been in this space for the last couple of years. We had a few bumps in the road, but the last couple of years, and next year will be even bigger, is very much heavily anchored to that. Mm-hmm. And then redefine profit, go smaller profit margin, lifetime client, better referrals. This is a long game on this one. It's not, the days of going, I'm going to run a 30-40% profit margin on this from DOT. It's just not going to work. Or I think you'll end up overcharging the client or under delivering on your service. You got to treat this like a membership model.
Like a membership model. Do you think there's value in actually looking at the service offers and going, well, okay, what's expensive to do and requires a lot of effort, what's on the cheap end, and sort of ripping out the stuff which is just high effort, but focusing on the stuff that, like you've done with the video, etc. Yeah.
I think find ways to cut costs where you can. So the 2 biggest ones is going to be people. You've got to go offshore or use an offshoring service. I mean, that's the reason why we've got Elaine. The quality's gone through the roof. She's A grade. We can't get her here for the price that we pay. Yeah. So you have to go offshore, I think. And then 2, find ways to remove
self-serve
fat out of your offer. Deliver a video where it could have been virtual, deliver it virtual where it could have been done face-to-face, because you can just, especially a guy like me, I'm still banging on. If this was a video, it would have been done in 15 minutes, probably would have said everything, but we're 75 minutes through and I haven't shut up yet. So I've just cost myself an hour. Now, obviously in this environment, hopefully it's been valuable for you guys. And I love talking about this stuff. So it's valuable for me no matter what. But if this is a client thing and I could have delivered it in 10 minutes via video, why waste an hour on it? So you got to look for those types of things to get your profitability up. But this is a long-term play, lifetime value of client.
Perfect. Dude, this has been amazing. I'm going to put that link in again. Tell us a bit about the program. What does it do? What's the input, the output?
It'll basically stop you from making a whole bunch of stupid decisions around what you've done with your budgeting and your cash flow stuff. It'll teach you how to build a program that then gets delivered efficiently and effectively using technology, rather than using technology and then trying to wrap a program around it. It's the equivalent, I sort of say, of going to technology first. It's like going to Xplan and Midwinter, signing up for that, and then going and asking them, how do I give financial advice? Like, you wouldn't do that. But when it comes to this stuff, we sort of defer to the Money Softs and the My Prosperities to run our budgeting and cash flow offer. And that's just not right. Plus, it's missing banking. The banking is the most important part. I cannot stress that enough. If you took technology away from us today, I'd be able to run it with the banking stuff, and everybody else's offer would die because they don't have that piece. So what I do is teach you. I go back 8 years when we didn't have technology, and we did all of this stuff by manually reconciling clients' CSV files and using Excel spreadsheets and banking buckets. We get old school on this shit, and I teach you how to do it. I teach you how to build your own version. I teach you how to avoid making dumbass mistakes like I've done along the way. And hopefully all of that is worth a couple of $100 of your time and hard earned.
There you go. So do me a favor, everybody who's here, I can tell that this has been cracking because everyone's still here and they're still sort of live. I'd love you to type in the box because we're both really in need of, positive feedback. Well, feedback and generally, high need for it. Do me a favor, type in the box and just tell me one thing that you've taken from today's discussion, which is you could take away and implement in your business in the next 7 days, and it's going to make it better. Just so we know exactly what those elements were. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to ask you a question, Steve.
Yes, mate.
One of the questions we're going to cover off at the next 2-day accelerator is all about the future. Give us an idea 2 years from now. What do you think is the number one thing that is going to be different about the way advice is provided that most advisors maybe aren't as aware of as they could be, in your opinion?
Well, excluding with the individual licensing versus aligned model, actually not excluding that. I think that's going to shape it the most. I think it's going to go shackles off. I think licensees have not mandated, but very heavily influenced the way advice is defined. Yeah. And I think most advisors, if they were left to their own volition, would not define financial advice in the way that they have to live it and breathe it today. So I actually think that will be the biggest change. And I think what will happen is it doesn't need every licensee to break up. It just needs one, and one of the bigger ones to break up, and a whole bunch of advisors to get out on the other side and go, hey, I've been delivering this new advice thing to my clients, and guess what? Like, I'm not in jail yet, and ASIC haven't come and shut me down, and my clients haven't run screaming. And I gave them an SOA that wasn't 745 pages long. And I used the video and the world didn't close in. Like, I think what's going to happen is people are going to start to look outside the fence and they'll go, it's actually okay over there. These guys aren't rebels and rogues and money hungry lunatics, and that'll change things. And then I actually think Australian financial advice practices lead the world. I've done a bit of work with the UK. I'm doing a bit of work with the US now. I think we are the best at delivering advice. I think we are too scared to face into using technology. And I think that'll be for me, the thing that was holding that together was the licensee. Remove the licensee, and mate, we are going to be so far ahead of everybody else.
I agree.
We'll start, we can start taking over the world then, and they can look to us.
I got an email from a Canadian advisor, a lovely lady, a really long email, but one of the questions she asked is, do you know of any other advisors who are charging fee for service? And I was like, this is a conversation we were having 15, 20 years ago, and a lot of the world is still coming to it. So there's a lot of things which are holding us back, but there are so much positive in what we're doing. So it's good stuff. I did want to ask one other question, but you know what? I'm just going to move into the feedback because it's good. By the way, everybody who's not provided feedback, Shane, Simon, Keith, Jeffrey, I really would like to know what was most important. But Ruben, straight to the point, he says, don't be half-assed. If you're going to be pregnant, so to speak. Nina says, although she's a wire herself, the characteristics of the group and how to approach helping them solve their problems was useful. Help them, don't tell them. And I think it's just our industry. We're almost taught to focus on what's my offer instead of what's the problem. And if you just go, hey, I can solve that problem for you, then you've got a proof point to hit. And next thing you know, you've got someone who goes, okay, you can add value. Bernadette says, there is a GenXY market. I've been told numerous times that there is no market. Profits there.
Bernadette, can you please, whoever tells you that, can you just go and slap them? Just A grade Batman, you know, that Batman meme where just halfway through a sentence,
Yeah.
just go and do that. That is bullshit. The market is massive.
Just whenever someone says that, just go, can I just stop you there and don't say another word?
Just say, Steve said I'm allowed to slap you.
Who else we got? Shane says, think outside the box. Love it. Keith says, need to make sure the offer is focused and well-defined. Exactly. Simon wants to know, how do you do pricing per service and how it builds? I would suggest that jump on the Facebook group. Go to Facebook and ask that one.
I'll answer it.
But man, the thing I've taken so many notes, but I think the one thing I just want to leave at the end, which I think for me sums it up, which is I think one of the things you can do really well as a business is to stop thinking about this as a traditional advice relationship and start thinking about this as a membership model. Because if you can think about it as a membership model, you'll start to think differently about building a system and an offer instead of trying to go out there and sell yourself. And I think that's probably one of the key things to being able to make this work ongoing. Glenn says, just help clients reach their goals, aspirations without the talk of product. Actually do shit that matters. Yes. Dude, as always, you are an absolute fountain of insight. And a lot, as you know, the title says it all. It's come through hard graft and it's come through trying things. It's come through going out there and going, well, let's give that a go. Okay, that didn't work. And I reckon the thing about what I love about every time I see you speak and the programs is it's based on you just going, yeah, I tried a bunch of stuff. It didn't work. So don't go down that route. Don't go down that route. Don't go down that route. And it's things like that enable us as an industry to progress faster as opposed to everyone have to try the same thing themselves. So salute you, sir.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks. Thanks to everybody for hanging and yeah, awesome stuff. Thank you very much.
So just to confirm, because there was a question that came up, if people want to connect with you further, it sounds like the Facebook group.
Yeah, Facey group, LinkedIn, flick me an email, Steve at the xyacademy.com.
So what's just so I know, what exactly is the Facebook group called? So
it should be the XY Academy.
The XY Academy.
Yeah.
And if you type that.
They type that in, let's search for the group. I'll open it up, let you guys in and
then close the door behind you. Okay. Mate, that's perfect. What's on for the rest of the day?
I'm actually running a coaching call in 5 minutes now. So I'm going to bail out of Zoom. I'm going to go old school and get stuck back into my 1985 GoToMeeting software. And I'm going to coach a few clients, a few advisors on how to use video in their advice practice. All
right. Well, let's leave it there. Thank you so much. Enjoy your session. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon, Steve. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, gents, ladies. See you later. Speak to you soon.